The weight of my father's casket rested heavily on my shoulder as I helped carry him to his final resting place. The rain hammered against my face, blending with the tears I refused to acknowledge. Through the haze, I spotted Stacy walking ahead, her expensive heels sinking into the mud as she clung to our stepmother's arm. Even at our father's funeral, she had to be the center of attention. I'm Zai, and today was the day I realized that blood isn't always stronger than water. Sometimes, it's stronger than deceit. He would have wanted you to walk with the family, Camila whispered next to me, adjusting her hold on the casket. My cousin always seemed to know exactly what was on my mind. I am family, I muttered in return, whether Stacy likes it or not. The service was a blur of black umbrellas and empty sympathies. I stood apart from the crowd, watching as Stacy delivered a dramatic eulogy about being her father's favorite. My stomach churned. If only they knew the truth about their so-called princess. Your father was a good man. Gareth, the family lawyer, appeared beside me. He would have been proud to see you here. I forced a smile. Thank you for coming, Gareth. Of course. We'll need to discuss the estate soon, maybe next week. Before I could respond, Stacy's voice rang out. Gareth, there you are. She glided over, her mascara flawless despite her fake sorrow. We can talk tomorrow. I've already cleared my schedule. Gareth shifted awkwardly. Actually, Stacy, both you and Zai need to be here for. Oh, don't be ridiculous, Stacy interrupted with a laugh, her voice jarring in the otherwise somber mood. Dad made it clear. Everything goes to me. Zai understands that, don't you, sis? My fists clenched. No, actually, I don't. Now is not the time, our stepmother, Ella, intervened, appearing at Stacy's side. Please, girls, your father wouldn't want this. You're right, Mom, Stacy smiled sweetly. We should focus on remembering Dad. Though, I do need to stop by his study tonight to grab some important papers. My head snapped up. What papers? Just some family documents Dad wanted me to have. Nothing you need to worry about. Her tone set off alarm bells in my mind. I'd seen that look before. The same one she wore when she convinced Dad to send her to private school while I stayed in public, or when she somehow ended up with Mom's jewelry collection after their divorce. Actually, I said, stepping forward, I think I'll help you look for them. Old time's sake. Stacy's smile faltered for a moment. That won't be necessary. I insist. The air between us crackled with tension as people began to disperse, leaving only our immediate family in the rain. Fine, Stacy conceded with a syrupy, sweet voice. Meet me at the house at 8. We'll go through everything together. I watched her walk away, her arm intertwined with our stepmother's. Camila appeared at my side, worry etched on her face. You're not letting this go, are you? No, I replied, my gaze still fixed on Stacy's retreating figure. Not this time. Later that evening, I arrived at the house early. The spare key was still hidden beneath the loose brick by the garden. Dad never got around to moving it. Inside, the house felt different, emptier somehow. Family photos lined the hallway, with Stacy often front and center, while I was relegated to the sidelines if I appeared at all. I made my way to Dad's study, flipping on the light. The room smelled of leather and his favorite cigars. My throat tightened as I ran my fingers along his desk, remembering countless nights spent watching him work. A noise from downstairs made me freeze. Footsteps, too fast to be Stacy's usual measured pace. I ducked behind the door just as a shadow appeared in the hallway. Through the crack, I saw Stacy slip into the study and head straight for Dad's filing cabinet. She yanked open drawers, frantically searching through folders. I stepped out from my hiding place. Stacy spun around, papers clutched tightly to her chest. You're early. So are you, I retorted, my eyes narrowing. I was just getting organized before you arrived. By destroying evidence, I asked. I don't know what you mean. She tried to push past me, but I blocked her way. In her haste, several papers slipped from her grasp. As I bent down to pick them up, my heart stopped. There, in Dad's familiar handwriting, was a letter addressed to me. The date, just 3 weeks ago. Give me those. Stacy lunged forward, but I held the papers out of her reach. My eyes scanned the first few lines. My dearest Zai, there's something you need to know about your sister. My hands trembled as I read the letter, every word landing like a punch. Stacy paced the room like a trapped animal, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against her arms. You weren't supposed to find that, she hissed. Clearly, I replied, glancing up from the letter. Is this why you've been sneaking around? Because Dad found out about the forged documents. Her face turned pale. You don't understand. Oh, I understand perfectly. You've been forging his signature on business contracts for years, making deals behind his back, playing both sides. I waved the letter. He knew Stacy. He knew everything. Give me that letter. She lunged forward again, but I sidestepped her. Or what? You'll tell Dad? Too late for that, isn't it? A knock at the door startled both of us. Ella stood in the doorway, concern etched on her face. Girls, what's going on? I heard shouting. Nothing, Mom, Stacy said quickly, smoothing her hair. Just going through some old memories. I held up the letter. Actually, we were just talking about how your daughter's been defrauding Dad's company. The color drained from Ella's face. What? She's lying, Stacy snapped. She's always been jealous of my relationship with Dad. Now she's trying to turn you against me too. Read it for yourself. I handed the letter to Ella, watching her eyes widen as she read the contents. Stacy, she whispered, please tell me this isn't true. Before Stacy could respond, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Camila. Found something. Meet me at Cafe Luna now. This isn't over, I told Stacy, gathering the scattered papers. Not by a long shot. 20 minutes later, I slid into a booth across from Camila. Her laptop was open, and she was practically bouncing with excitement. You won't believe what I found, she said, turning the screen toward me. Remember that huge contract Dad's company lost last year? The one that almost bankrupted them. I nodded, scanning the documents on her screen. Look at the signature date, she pointed. Dad was in the hospital that day. There's no way he could have signed it, but someone did. But who? I murmured, pulling out my phone. I need a lawyer. Already handled, Camilla grinned. My friend Bod specializes in corporate fraud. He's waiting for your call. I dialed the number, my hands trembling. A deep, confident voice answered after 2 rings. Bod Daniels speaking. Hi, this is Zai. My cousin Camilla gave me your number. I need help exposing a fraud. I'm listening, Bod said, his voice steady and attentive. I spent the next hour outlining everything Camilla and I had uncovered. Bod asked pointed questions, his curiosity sharp. Send me all the files you have, Bod instructed. And Zai, don't confront your sister again without me there. People like her get dangerous when cornered. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a message from Gareth. Emergency meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. Stacy's rushing to move assets. She's acting quickly. Too quickly, Camilla noted, peering over my shoulder. She's scared, I muttered, agreeing. That night, sleep eluded me. I spread the papers across the floor, piecing together the puzzle that should have been clear years ago. Suspicious withdrawals from Dad's business accounts, odd contracts, and his signature slightly off on certain documents. A knock at my door snapped me from my thoughts. I peered through the peephole and saw Gareth, looking uneasy. Sorry to show up this late, he said as I opened the door, but I think you need to see this. He handed me a thick folder. These were in my private safe, he explained. Your father left them there 3 months ago, with instructions to open them only after his death. My heart raced as I flipped through the pages. Bank statements, security footage, email printouts. Dad hadn't just known about Stacy's fraud. He'd been gathering evidence against her. Why didn't he stop her? I asked, my voice thick with emotion. Gareth's expression softened. Read the last page. It was another letter from Dad, written just days before his death. My dearest Zai, if you're reading this, it means I ran out of time. I couldn't bring myself to send my own daughter to prison, but I couldn't let her ruin everything we built. The truth is in your hands now. Make it right. I looked up at Gareth, grief transforming into resolve. I need you to help me take her down. He nodded. I was hoping you'd say that. Tomorrow at 9 a.m. it's going to be a fight. As he left, I sent a message to Bod, new evidence. How early can you meet? His reply was swift. 7:00 a.m. my office. Bring everything. The stakes had escalated, and this time, I wasn't going to let Stacy win. At Bod's office, the air was thick with determination and the smell of coffee. By 7:00 a.m., Bod was at the whiteboard, mapping out connections between the documents as I briefed Ricardo. the private investigator. These signatures, Ricardo pointed to several contracts on the board. They're good forgeries, but there's a tell. Look at the R here, see how it's formed differently. That's an amateur mistake. Amateur or not, she fooled everyone for years, I muttered, rubbing my temples. Not everyone, Bod countered, capping his marker. Your father knew, and now we know. I turned to Ricardo. How fast can you track down everyone involved in these contracts? Ricardo glanced at his watch. Give me 48 hours, but people talk when there's money involved. We don't have 48 hours, I reminded them. The meeting's in less than 2 hours, and Stacy's trying to take everything. Bod smiled. Let her think she's winning. Sometimes you have to let them feel in control before you reveal your hand. At 8:55 a.m., we walked into the conference room. Stacy was already there, wearing a designer dress that probably cost more than my car. Her smile faltered when she saw Bod standing beside me. Who's this? She demanded, her voice dripping with venom. My lawyer, I replied, sitting down. Hope you don't mind. Ella sat between us, looking worn out, her eyes red. Gareth arrived last, his briefcase bulging with documents. Before we start, Stacy said with a smirk, I have Dad's most recent will. It's clear about his wishes. She slid the document across the table. Bod studied it for a few seconds before setting it down. Interesting. When did your father sign this? He asked. 2 months ago, Stacy replied confidently. Remarkable, Bod said dryly, especially since he was in a medically induced coma that whole week. The room went dead silent. Stacy's smile flickered. That's absurd. I have witnesses. Marcus from accounting. I cut in. We spoke to him this morning. He's more than willing to cooperate, especially when faced with charges for accessory to fraud. Stacy's face turned hard. You're bluffing. Am I? I nodded to Bod, who opened his laptop and played a video. On screen, Marcus's nervous face filled the monitor as he detailed years of cooking the books at Stacy's direction. Turn that off, Stacy shouted, standing up, her face flushed with rage. This is all lies. Mom, you can't believe this, Stacy shouted at Ella. Ella refused to meet her eyes. The signature matches. I recognized it from your old homework assignments. The same way you used to sign Dad's name. This is ridiculous. Stacy laughed, but it sounded hollow. Gareth, tell them about Dad's wishes. Gareth cleared his throat, pulling out the folder he'd shown me the night before. Your father left specific instructions about the evidence of systematic fraud within the company, he said. Stacy's composure finally cracked. You're all against me. Dad loved me most, everyone knows that. Dad loved us both, I replied quietly. But he trusted me more. Why do you think he left all this evidence with me? My phone buzzed again. Ricardo just found the smoking gun. A former client is willing to testify about kickbacks, sending details now. It's over, Stacy, I said, standing up. You can choose the easy way or the hard way. You wouldn't dare go public, she hissed. Better the truth than more lies, I said firmly, then turned to Bod. Show her the numbers. He projected a spreadsheet on the wall. Every fraudulent transaction, every forged signature, every stolen dollar. 5 years of fraud, Bod explained coolly. Over $12 million in fraudulent contracts. The DA's office will love this case. Tears started to ruin Stacy's perfect makeup. Mom, please. Ella moved to my side, squeezing my hand under the table. Stacy Harper, Bod said, his voice unwavering. You have 24 hours to sign a full confession and agree to repay the stolen funds, or we take this to the authorities. You can't prove it, Stacy shouted. We already have, Gareth interrupted. Your father made sure of that. Stacy grabbed her purse, storming for the door, pausing only to hiss, You'll regret this as I promise you. Once she was gone, Ella broke down in tears. I held her while Bod and Gareth discussed next steps. Ricardo's team is keeping an eye on her, Bod reassured me. She won't get far if she tries to run. My phone buzzed again. Camila just saw Stacy leaving the building. She looked scary mad. Want me to follow her? I texted back, no. Let her go. We've got everything we need. But a nagging feeling told me this wasn't over. Stacy had never been one to accept defeat, and now she had nothing left to lose. Gareth must have sensed it too. Be careful, he warned. The most dangerous animal is one that's cornered. I nodded, staring out the window as the rain began to fall. The storm was just beginning, and I had to be ready when it hit. 3 days later, the courthouse steps felt like a mountain as I climbed them. Stacy hadn't signed the confession. Instead, she'd filed an emergency injunction, claiming I was trying to steal her inheritance through false accusations. Ready? Bod asked as he held the heavy courthouse door open. No, I admitted, but let's do it anyway. Inside, Stacy sat with her new lawyer, a sharp-dressed shark. She traded in her designer clothes for a conservative blue dress, playing the role of the grieving daughter to perfection. All rise, the bailiff called as Judge Martinez entered. Stacy's lawyer stood up. Your Honor, my client is the victim of a malicious attempt to deny her rightful inheritance through fabricated fraud allegations. I gripped the edge of the table as Stacy's lawyer wove a story about my supposed envy and desperation. Next to me, Bod remained calm, meticulously sorting through documents. And now, the lawyer finished, her sister is threatening to ruin their father's legacy with these unfounded allegations. Judge Martinez turned his attention to Bod. Counselor, Your Honor, Bod stood confidently. Before presenting our evidence, I'd like to call our first witness, Marcus from the accounting department at Harper Industries. Stacy's complexion drained as Marcus slowly made his way to the witness stand. He refused to meet her eyes. Mr. Marcus, Bod began, please tell the court about the meeting on September 15th of last year. Objection, Stacy's lawyer interjected. Relevance. This is simply a pattern of behavior. Your Honor, Bod replied smoothly, overruled. Continue. Marcus cleared his throat. Miss Stacy called me to her office that day. She asked me to verify some signatures on contracts. When I told her her father was in the hospital, she insisted I make it work or find another job. The judge leaned in. Are you suggesting she asked you to forge documents? Not directly, Your Honor. She just told me to handle it and left an envelope of cash on my desk. Stacy's lawyer scrambled to salvage the situation, but Marcus's testimony was just the beginning. Over the next 2 hours, witness after witness stepped up, detailing Stacy's actions. Former clients testified about kickbacks, bank employees confirmed suspicious transactions, and security footage showed Stacy entering the office at unusual times. During a brief recess, Camilla squeezed my hand. You're winning. Just look at her, she's falling apart. She was right. Stacy's composed facade was crumbling. She kept whispering anxiously to her lawyer, who looked increasingly defeated. Your Honor, Bod said as we reconvened, I'd like to present Exhibit C, a video recording from Mr. Harper's private study, filmed just 1 week before his death. My breath caught. I had no idea about this video. The courtroom screen flickered to life, showing Dad sitting at his desk, worn out but resolute. If anyone's watching this, he began, then my worst suspicions about Stacy have come true. I've collected evidence of her fraudulent activities for months, but I couldn't bear to turn in my own daughter. Instead, I'm leaving this task to Zai. She has always been the honest one, the stronger one. Stacy, if you're watching this, I love you, but I can't protect you from the consequences of your actions anymore. Stacy broke down, but these weren't the calculated tears she usually used. They were raw, unfiltered, and genuine. Your Honor, her lawyer began, but Stacy interrupted him. Stopped, she whispered, then louder, stop. I can't do this anymore. The courtroom fell into a stunned silence as Stacy, her legs shaking, stood up. It's all true, she confessed. Everything they're saying. I forged the signatures. I made the deals. I thought I could fix it before anyone noticed, but then Dad got sick, and everything collapsed. Judge Martinez's gaze was unwavering. Miss Harper, are you admitting to multiple counts of fraud? Yes, Stacy whispered. Yes, I am. The next hour passed in a blur of legal jargon and negotiations. Stacy agreed to a full confession in exchange for a lighter sentence. The inheritance would be distributed according to Dad's original will. The company barely would survive. As we left the courthouse, Ella caught up to me, her eyes red from crying. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I should have seen it. I should have known. We all should have, I replied, hugging her. But we can't change what's already happened. Bod approached with a stack of papers. We need to file these immediately. The forensic accountants are already working on recovering the funds. What happens to Stacy now? I asked. Community service, probably some house arrest. The judge was lenient, considering her cooperation and your father's reputation. I watched as Stacy was escorted to a waiting car, her high-end handbag now replaced by a plain paper bag containing her personal belongings. Our eyes met briefly, and for the first time in years I saw my sister again, no longer my rival. Was it worth it? I called out. She paused, then slowly shook her head. Nothing ever is. As the car pulled away, I felt a heavy burden lift from my shoulders. But as Bod began discussing our next steps, my phone buzzed with an anonymous text. You took everything from her. Now she'll take everything from you. Watch your back. The battle wasn't over. It was just shifting. That threatening text was only the beginning. In the following week, things got strange. My office keys disappeared, files vanished from my computer, and my car's tires were mysteriously slashed. Someone's trying to intimidate you, Ricardo said, inspecting my vandalized car. And they're good at covering their tracks. Stacy's under house arrest, I reminded him. She can't be behind this herself. No, Ricardo replied. But she has connections, powerful ones who lost a lot when she was taken down. I was about to respond when my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Is this Zai? A man's voice, unfamiliar. I have information about your sister's other accounts. I put it on speaker so Ricardo could hear. What other accounts? Offshore, Cayman Islands. A lot more money. Meet me at the old warehouse on Pike Street tonight. Come alone. The line went dead. It's a trap, Ricardo said immediately. Obviously, I agreed, but it might be our only chance to learn who's behind this. You're not going alone, he said, pulling out his phone. I'm calling Bod. 2 hours later, we had a plan. I would meet the mysterious caller, but Ricardo's team would keep watch. Bod insisted on being nearby with a legal team ready to act on any new evidence. The warehouse loomed dark and imposing in the evening light. I checked my hidden microphone one last time. Testing, clear signal. Ricardo's voice came through my earpiece. We've got eyes on all exits. I took a deep breath and stepped inside. The warehouse was vast and empty, save for old machinery and scattered debris. Footsteps echoed from behind me. You came? A man emerged from the shadows. I recognized him, Thomas, a board member who had resigned after Stacy's arrest. You're working with her? I asked, my tone cold. He grinned icily. Stacy was great for business, very good, until you ruined everything. She ruined it herself. Perhaps, he said, pulling out an envelope, but we can fix it. Inside is proof of 20 million in hidden accounts. Sign over your share of the company, and it's yours. Why would I do that? Because if you don't, things might start happening to you, to your cousin Camila, to your stepmother. A sound from above made us both look up. A figure moved across the walkway. I thought I said come alone, Thomas sneered. I did. My heart raced as I realized someone else was there. Suddenly, the lights blazed on. Stacy stood on the walkway, her ankle monitor flashing. Really, Thomas? She called down. This was your big plan? Amateur. What are you doing here? He demanded. You're supposed to be under house arrest. She laughed bitterly. Did you really think this little ankle bracelet could stop me? I'd own the security company that monitors it. You're breaking your plea deal, I warned, backing toward the door. Oh, sister dear, she smiled. That plea deal was just to buy time. Time to find out who my real friends are. She looked pointedly at Thomas. Clearly, I had fewer allies than I thought. The police are on their way, I said, my hand finding my phone. No, they're not, Thomas grinned. Your wire isn't transmitting anymore. Signal jammers are quite handy. My heart pounded. I realized he was right. My earpiece was dead silent. What do you want? I demanded, trying to keep my composure. I want, Stacy slowly descended the stairs, her voice cold. I want my life back. I want what's mine. She paused dramatically, then pulled out a gun. I want you to understand how it feels to lose everything. Think carefully, I urged, my voice steady despite the rising tension. You're already in a bad position. This will only make things worse for you. Worse? Stacy laughed bitterly. I'm already lost. What's one more mistake? Suddenly, the warehouse doors crashed open, and Ricardo's team rushed in, followed by police officers. Drop the weapon, they commanded. Thomas tried to flee but was quickly subdued. Stacy stood motionless, her gun still pointed, tears streaming down her face. It's over, Stacy, I said softly. Don't make this harder than it already is. For a moment I thought she might shoot, but then the gun fell to the floor with a clatter. She crumpled, sobbing uncontrollably as the police cuffed them both. Bod appeared beside me. Signal jammers didn't work, I asked. He smiled. Ricardo made sure we had backup frequencies. Good thing we did. I watched as they led Stacy to a police car. There would be no more house arrest or plea deals this time. Are you okay? Camilla asked, pulling me into a tight hug. No, I admitted. But I will be. Later that evening, as Camilla, Bod, and I sat in my apartment discussing what came next, my phone buzzed with a message from Ella. Just heard what happened. Coming over. We need to talk about the company's future. Maybe, after all the destruction, something good could come from this. The boardroom felt different now, brighter, almost. Sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating the chair where Stacy used to sit. 2 weeks later, we gathered to decide the company's fate. The numbers aren't good, Gareth said, handing out reports. Stacy's actions cost us more than just money. We've lost client trust. Show them the proposal, Ella urged, squeezing my hand under the table. I stood, smoothing my blazer. Yes, we've lost trust, but we can rebuild it, starting with total transparency. As I clicked through my presentation, I shared the plan I crafted over sleepless nights: new oversight committees, external audits, a complete overhaul of the management system. This is ambitious, one board member said. Very ambitious. It has to be, I replied. We're not just saving a company, we're saving my father's legacy. The door burst open. Ricardo rushed in, looking frazzled. Sorry to interrupt, he said. You need to see this. He turned on the TV mounted on the wall. Stacy's face filled the screen. She was giving a live interview from prison. My sister destroyed our family business, she said, tears streaming down her face. She turned everyone against me out of jealousy, and now she's trying to take control of everything. The board members shifted uncomfortably. Turn it off, Ella said firmly. We all know the truth. Do we? Another board member rose. How can we trust anyone from this family after all this? At that moment, Bod entered with a thick folder. Complete forensic accounting for every transaction over the past 10 years, he said, passing out reports. Every dollar accounted for, every decision tracked. You'll see that while Stacy was making shady deals, Zai was actually saving the company money through legitimate contracts, he continued. The room fell silent as they processed the reports. Numbers don't lie, and these told a very clear story. My phone buzzed. A text from Camilla. Stacy's lawyer is holding another press conference. Turn to Channel 7. Wait, I said, as Ricardo reached for the remote. Let them talk. We have something better than words. I pulled up the final slide of my presentation, a video compilation. It showed security footage of Stacy making backdoor deals, audio of her threatening employees, and bank statements revealing the stolen millions. We can release all of this, I said quietly. We could air every bit of dirty laundry for the world to see, or, someone prompted. Or we can focus on moving forward and building something better. The choice is yours. The board exchanged looks. Finally, the chairman spoke. Put it to a vote. All in favor of appointing Zai as CEO and moving forward with her restructuring plan. One by one, hands went up. Not all, but enough. More than enough. Motion carried, the chairman announced. Congratulations. As the board members filed out, Ella hugged me tightly. Your father would be so proud. Miss Zai, Ricardo interrupted. There's someone here to see you. A woman entered. I recognized her as Thomas's secretary. She nervously clutched a USB drive. I've been keeping records, she said. Of everything, the real deals, the hidden accounts, things even your sister didn't know about. Bod took the drive. This could be crucial evidence. Why now? I asked. She straightened, finding courage. Because you reminded me that doing the right thing matters more than doing the easy thing. Later that evening, as I packed up my father's old office, my office now, Gareth appeared in the doorway. Your sister's lawyer called, he said. They want to make a deal. What kind of deal? A full confession, the names of all conspirators, in exchange for a reduced sentence. I sat down in Dad's chair, running my fingers over the worn leather armrests. What do you think? I think, he said carefully, that sometimes mercy is stronger than justice. Just then, my phone lit up with a message from an unknown number. A video file. Stacy in prison, looking defeated. I'm sorry, she said simply, for everything. You were right and I was wrong. I'm sorry. I played the video 3 times, looking for any signs of manipulation or lies. There were none. Tell her lawyer yes, I told Gareth, but with conditions. She gets real help. And when she's out, if she wants it, there's a place for her here. A chance to rebuild. After everything, I glanced at Dad's photo on the wall. Family is complicated, but it's still family. Gareth nodded slowly. I'll make the calls. As night fell, I stood by the office window, watching the city lights flicker on across the skyline. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and battles. But for now, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. My phone buzzed one last time. Ella. Dinner at home tonight. Time to start new traditions. I smiled, grabbed my coat, and turned off the lights. It was time to go home. 6 months flew by in a blur of meetings and rebuilding. The company was slowly finding its footing again, and today marked another milestone, Stacy's sentencing. You don't have to go, Ella said as we walked up the courthouse steps. Yes, I do. Inside, the courtroom was packed. Stacy sat at the defendant's table, wearing a simple gray dress, her usual designer labels absent. She looked smaller, somehow more vulnerable. All rise, the bailiff called. Judge Martinez looked over the papers in front of her. Before I deliver the sentence, would the defendant like to make a statement? Stacy stood slowly, her hands shaking as she unfolded a piece of paper. I had a whole speech prepared, she said, then crumpled the paper. But that's what got me here, always performing, always pretending. So instead, I'll just tell the truth. She turned to face me. I was envious. Dad always trusted you more, even though I was the one putting in all the effort to impress him. Every time you succeeded just by being yourself, I resented you a little more. So I started lying, scheming, doing whatever it took to come out on top. Along the way, I lost who I really was. Tears fell from her eyes. I'm sorry, Zai. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry, Dad. She looked up as if searching for them. I know you can't hear me, but I'm sorry. The judge leaned forward. Considering your cooperation and your sister's request for leniency, I sentence you to 18 months in a minimum security facility, followed by 3 years of probation. You will also be required to pay full restitution for the stolen funds. When the gavel struck, Stacy exhaled in relief. Thank you, she murmured as they led her away. Outside the courthouse, reporters rushed toward us. Zai, how do you feel about the sentence? Will you let your sister return to the company? No comments. Bod intervened, guiding me through the crowd. Back at the office, Camila was waiting with Ricardo, holding a stack of files. We found something interesting in Thomas's records, she said. Remember the secretary who gave us the USB drive? She had more, Ricardo said, spreading out photos on my desk. These were taken at various hotels over the past year, Thomas meeting with competitors and making deals behind everyone's back, including Stacy's. So, she wasn't alone in this, I observed. Not even close, Camila replied. Thomas was playing both sides, using Stacy as a scapegoat while building his own empire. Where is he now? I asked. Gone, Ricardo answered. Disappeared after Stacy's arrest, but he left behind a trail. My phone rang. An international number. Hello, Miss I. A heavily accented voice said. This is Detective Santos from the Sao Paulo police. We have detained someone you might want to speak to. I put the phone on speaker. Thomas? I asked. Yes. He was trying to access certain bank accounts that we were monitoring at your lawyer's request. After hanging up, I called Bod. They found him, he replied. Already booking a flight to Brazil. Want to come? No, I said, glancing at the family photo on my desk. I have other plans. The women's correctional facility wasn't what I expected. Quiet, clean, and almost serene. Stacy sat across from me, nervously tugging at her sleeve. They found Thomas, I told her. Her eyes widened. Where? Brazil? Trying to get his hands on the money he stole from both of us? She gave a bitter laugh. I trusted him. Should have known better. We all should have, I agreed, sliding a folder across the table. But that's not why I'm here. This is your copy of the company's new organizational chart. There's a position waiting for you when you get out, if you're interested. Her hands shook as she opened the folder. Vice President of Client Relations. After everything, you were always better with people than I was, when you weren't trying to ruin them, that is. For the first time in years, she gave me a genuine smile, not the rehearsed one she always flashed for the cameras. I don't deserve this. Maybe not, but Dad always said everyone deserves a chance at redemption. As I stood to leave, she grabbed my hand. Zai, thank you for not giving up on me. That evening, Ella hosted our usual family dinner. Camila brought wine, Bod brought case files despite my protests, and Ricardo came with updates on Thomas's extradition. Ella raised a glass. To family. I smiled, raising my glass as well. Just then, my phone lit up with a photo from the prison, a picture of Stacy holding up a sign she made herself. Save my office chair. I'll earn it back. Maybe some things truly do come full circle. The autumn wind blew gently through Dad's favorite oak tree as I placed fresh flowers on his grave. The morning sun cast long shadows, and I heard a bird's song in the distance. I wish you could see how things turned out, I whispered, my fingers brushing against the cool stone. He can. Stacy's voice came from behind me. She stood in a simple business suit, her ankle monitor finally gone. At least, that's what I like to think. I hadn't expected her here today. Her first day of freedom. Shouldn't you be preparing for the office? This feels more important, she said, kneeling beside me, placing her flowers beside mine. Besides, the board meeting isn't until 10. My phone buzzed with a message from Bod. The final numbers from Thomas's prosecution, full restitution plus damages. The company was more stable than ever. Nervous about today? I asked. Terrified, she replied with a small smile. But ready. A car pulled up, and Ella and Camila arrived on time. Our weekly family breakfast tradition hadn't been broken, even during Stacy's incarceration. We just had to get creative with visiting hours. Girls, Ella called as we walked into the diner and sat at our usual table. The waitress didn't bat an eye at Stacy's return. She just brought our usual orders: black coffee for me, herbal tea for Stacy, pancakes for Camila, and French toast for Ella. Before we dug in, Ella pulled out an envelope. I found this in your father's old desk. It's for both my girls, when they're ready. Stacy and I exchanged looks. We opened the envelope together. Inside was a photo. Dad holding both of us as kids, before the competition, before the lies, and a letter. My daughters, if you're reading this, you've either worked things out or your mother finally locked you both in a room until you did. Either way, I'm proud. Success isn't measured in dollars or deals. It's measured in the bridges we build, the wrongs we right, and the love we share. I failed you both by not saying this enough when I could. Zai, your strength was never in trying to prove yourself. It was in being yourself. Stacy, your worth was never in trying to be perfect. It was in being real. Take care of each other. Take care of the company, but most importantly, take care of yourselves. Love always, Dad. Stacy wiped her eyes with a napkin. He knew. He knew we'd end up here. He hoped, Ella corrected gently. My phone buzzed again, Ricardo. This time, Thomas took the plea deal. Full confession, it's really over. As we finished breakfast, Gareth appeared at our table. Sorry to interrupt, but the board's gathering early. Big client waiting. Both of us? Stacy asked uncertainly. Both of you, he confirmed. They specifically requested the Harper sisters. Walking into the boardroom together felt surreal. The client, a major tech company, wanted to discuss expansion plans. As Stacy presented the market analysis she prepared while in prison, I watched the board members' faces shift from skepticism to intrigue. Impressive work, the client remarked. Both of you. Your father built something special here. I corrected, catching Stacy's eye. But we're building something special here. After the meeting, I found Stacy in Dad's old office. Your desk is down the hall, I said. Corner office, just like you always wanted. I know, she said, running her fingers over the bookshelf. I just wanted to say goodbye properly this time, to who I was and what I did. Fresh start. Fresh start, she smiled genuinely. Though I still plan to outperform you in client acquisitions. Legally this time. Legally this time. As she left, I noticed she had placed the childhood photo, the one from Dad's letter, on his old desk in a new frame. My phone buzzed one last time, a message in our family group chat. Ella had sent a picture of Dad's garden, which she had finally started tending to again. The roses he loved were blooming. Stacy replied first. Family dinner tonight. I'll cook. You'll burn down the kitchen, I texted back. Probably take out at my place then. Deal. I looked out the office window at the city below, the same view Dad loved, now shared by both his daughters, not in competition, but in collaboration. On my desk, the photo caught the morning light. 2 sisters, 1 father, countless possibilities ahead. This time, we'd write the story together. Thanks for watching. See you again in the next video. Stay stunned.